everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm your girl, Coach Christal, and welcome to a new iteration called People on Purpose. Now, you may have joined us last year or earlier this year for a series called Wisdom Wednesdays, where we got to talk to some amazing people. And if you missed that series is still over on YouTube and on Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. But this year, we're going to do a little something different, because what I want you to know is how people live on purpose, how you find your purpose, and then how we can actually navigate the space between our right now and our future self. So today we're going to talk to Charles West. If this is your first time joining us, I want to first of all welcome you into the Steps and Stages community. And we just have a mantra here at Steps and Stages that we start each and every of our interactions with. It just says that a lot of things happened before this, and I guarantee a lot of things are going to happen after this, but I promise to be here with you now. Please be here with me now. Now, our guest today knows so much about staying in the present moment, but he also knows a lot about discomfort. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about how the circumstances, situations, and conditions that surround us don't have to take over our lives by design or interrupt the intuitive process of becoming exactly who we're meant to be. So if you would help me welcome Charles West. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Christal. It is so fantastic to be here with you.
Always.
I love your mantra.
I love it. Yeah,
I'm
right.
Right along with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Now, I just want to say that, many people might not believe this, Charles, because I think we're so connected in many ways that we've never met in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in face-to-face, flesh-to-flesh. We've collaborated on several things. You've come and talked to the Steps and Stages Mastermind, and we've actually built this really intuitive kind of dynamic friendship. And for that, I just want to say thank you.
Oh, it's a blessing. It's a blessing and an honor. And yes.
Right. And we were just talking about the sacred yes before we jumped on, you guys. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But Charles, just give people a little bit of background on what it is you do.
Well, I am a hypno coach. Mm-hmm. So I became a certified life mastery consultant and dream builder coach through the Brave Thinking Institute about 7.5 years ago, after I received a shocking cancer diagnosis. I sought lots of alternative forms of healing to deal with my mind, body, soul, and spirit, and to nurture and support me in dealing with this diagnosis that obviously caught me by surprise. Yeah. At that time, I was sober for 12 years, and I was living a life that was thriving, truly. I've been a part of the Broadway community since I moved to New York City from the Chicago area in 1992, and was living a life that looked like success, but then every once in a while something comes along, like watching the World Trade Towers, collapse from the top of the roof where I lived in the West Village, and things happen that there's no way that we can be ready for them. Yeah. A cancer diagnosis. Mm-hmm. The COVID pandemic and everything being shut down. Yeah. And as you know, it's what we do with our mindset and our heart space. Yeah. In those times where it's like we have no frame of reference for how to process what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I became a life coach and was working with several clients right off the bat back in New York City. Mm-hmm. And they were receiving some pretty good results, but I realized that there were aspects of their lives that they weren't able to be touched by the coaching alone. And I ended up being guided to study with Marissa Peer, who is the creator and developer of rapid transformational hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. I trained with her 6 years ago in London, came back to New York, and all of a sudden, all of my clients were getting more fulfilling and deeper results. Yeah. They were one of the specialties that has really revealed itself to me is that I am able to help people get unstuck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot of people that are stuck these days. Yeah. And so I use a combination of coaching techniques and hypnotherapy to help people with different issues that they're dealing with.
I love it. Charles, what I find, from both of our backgrounds as performers and then me moving into education and now into coaching and facilitation, is that this transformation that we are coaching people on and leading people through is really the same thing that helps us become better on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, as you know, what we could tell people all day here is that if you're going to become something, how are you going to practice?
Well, what would you say to that?
Yeah, right. Like, well, one is decide who you want to be. Like most of the time when we go onto stage, there's a script or there's a character, or there's something that's guiding, right? So again, my practice starts from, hey, let's actually write the vision and make it plain first, and not just about the success that you want to have, but who you want to be while you're garnering that success and living through that success and redefining that success. So as we're kind of training that mindset, what I often find, I'm sure same thing with your clients, is that the stuck comes from some old story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes from, well, I mean, I can reflect back to 30 years ago, making my Broadway debut in a musical adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac at the Neil Simon Theater. And, it's like, here I was, I just moved to New York, and I was 6 months later, I'm making my Broadway debut. And I thought, wow. And my parents were there celebrating, and they were there for opening night. It was so amazing. But then when it was all done and they flew back home, I'm like, well, who am I now?
Yeah.
I was so defined. I became so defined by the roles I was playing, literal roles on stage.
Yes.
As you know, I mean, we have clients. I have clients that are doctors, that are lawyers, that are nurses, that are parents, that are teachers, that are so defined by the roles they play that they don't know who they are when they're not playing that role.
Exactly.
And that was me.
Right. And the a lot of us get caught up in the bigger fight that's around us. We want to, change the world. But as we know from all spiritual texts, the Tao Te Ching, the Bible, the Quran, like in order to change the world, you got to change yourself first.
Amen.
Right. Yeah. And so as we try to inspire people to do the inner work for the external impact, right? I keep coming back to this idea of building identity.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of what the planet and our country in particular is dealing with right now. It's like, well, so people that I've spoken to in this past week, well, it's like, well, they can't even give voice to why they feel threatened, right? So, some of them cannot.
Some of them can, yes.
Some of them, many do, many. But I am not in their skin. I cannot say to them, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
I must listen, reflect back to them who I see them as, the highest version of who they are, and let them feel all of their feelings.
Yeah.
But the thing that I know as a coach is that very often the emotions and the feelings that are going on internally, what are they based upon? Our thoughts. Our thoughts. And the thoughts that got stuck within us from our past.
Yeah.
And that's where the hypnotherapy comes in, is to be able to resolve and dissolve a lot of the stuff from our past. But in the present moment,
right?
How do you not feel unappreciated? How do you end up how do you not end up feeling, well, I mean, what would you say to your friends and clients, Christal? Yeah. How do you not end up feeling unappreciated and victimized right now?
Well, we would say that the victim level is your lowest form of consciousness, right? So how did all of those, we could talk about Charles's and crystals. How did all of those little crystals back there, or how did all those big crystals, or those crystals back there who were pretending to be big when they didn't really have the strength to carry on, how did they surmount the task in front of them? And so a lot of times what I say to my clients is, all of those crystals who used to be generals, or at least thought they were generals, are now still in the infantry. And they might not be able to lead us right now in this new stage of our development, but we know that they can fight. Amen. So let's just give them the charge to fight for the right now so that we can get to the highest version of you.
Right. Well, you've used the word battle, and you used the word fight just now. And there are times where it's like, okay, you see these angel wings in this halo, it can turn into a lightsaber real fast,
Right.
Walk out.
Right.
The thing is that I internalized so much my whole life and it was confusing to me. I was given a voice to sing with. Classically trained singer that I sing R&B and jazz, Broadway music, country, all kinds of songs.
Yeah.
But I couldn't use my voice to speak with.
Yeah.
I was not, I received the conditioning as a little boy that I was not allowed to give voice to my confusion, my pain, my fear, and my loneliness. And that's a whole lot of people out there right now.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with these feelings.
Yeah.
And so I know you and I were talking earlier about, rituals that we use. Could you share with our friends that are watching us, what are a few of the rituals that you do for yourself that nurture you so that you can show up for other people and lift them up?
Yeah. So, I think both of us probably have morning and evening rituals, Charles. Mine before I could find the voice of my own, I borrowed a voice, right? And I borrowed the voice of the prayer of Jabez, which is every morning I just wake up and say, oh, that you would bless me indeed, that you would expand my territory, that your hand would be with me, that you would keep me from evil so that I may not cause pain. And that's before my feet hit the floor.
I love it.
Right. And so if people out there are even having trouble finding their own mantras in the morning, like borrow that one. It's free. It's out there. Right. And so what it did for me is that it gave me something to hold on to, which is like the roles or the scripts that you and I are handed. Right. And it gave me something to dig into, because we know that as you're creating a role or as you're embodying a role, you have to start digging deep into your own experience to make it real.
That's right. You're bringing yourself. Yeah,
exactly. So as a mother, an artist, an entrepreneur, a coach, all these things, what I do want is an expansive territory so that what I'm giving can reach people who need it. I don't want to cause pain. I don't want to cause harm. I want to meet people where they are. I want to give them the words, the voice, and the next steps to get to the next stage of their lives. So in that prayer, what I'm asking is for integration. I'm asking for integration. I'm asking for leading, and I'm asking for the courage to show up as fully who I am so that other people have the permission to do the same.
Well, and what I heard, also what I felt, is a willingness to receive.
Yeah.
A vulnerability.
Yeah.
And an authenticity, a humility.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years that being able to learn how to go within. At first, when I started doing it, Christal, it felt like a lonely place. Yeah. I'm saying it really felt like a lonely place when I started going within. I remember the first time, like I was really, really struggling in my life 21 years ago. And my mentor said, hey, Charles, when you get home later on tonight, when you get ready to go to bed, just get down on your knees and at the side of your bed and ask God to help you. And at that time, I'm like, I mean, literally, I couldn't even imagine how I would find the audacity to do such a thing.
Yeah.
But I did it. I was able to take his kind guidance. And I did that thing.
Yeah.
I was weeping my face off while I was doing it. And I'm like, God, where are you now? Where are you in all of this?
Yeah.
And Christal, I received a download, and it just said, I'm right here, Charles. I'm right here. I was kneeling at the side of my bed, and I'm looking around.
Like, who said that?
Who said that? And I realized, and now I understand that it's right here.
Yeah.
It's right here. I mean, we don't need to go, I don't want to go into like the deep end of like, religious teachings right now, but it's spiritual. I'm being able to become a deeply, deeply loving spiritual man, prayerful. I meditate. It's like I'm living my life like a constant prayer. Possible, Yeah. That's a song title that I haven't written the song yet.
Okay, we can't wait to hear it. But even that gives people permission to not be perfect in the moment at what you think it is you really want to be.
Ooh, yes. Say that again. Say that again.
you don't have to be perfect in the moment at who it is you really want to be, because living a prayer is living into the fruition of all of your gifts. It's saying, I'm asking for something and I'm showing up to receive it. And that's where we can also start to really eliminate this idea of imposter syndrome. You're not impersonating someone, you're becoming the highest version of yourself. And it might feel wonky sometimes. You might be a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, you're practicing, and practice creates progress on the way to purpose.
When we are willing to listen, when we are able to receive, there's especially, and there are so many people presently that I know are still really struggling with anxiety, PTSD, and all addiction and alcoholism, as that are still connected to the COVID shutdown. And then like they were struggling and didn't have any type of a foundation of faith to lean on. And all of a sudden the world was impacted by this plague. And warriors like us were able to help some people. Well, guess what? It's still going on, and we're not done.
It's still going on, right?
I know. I mean, every single morning for the last, I'd say 16 years or so, when I realize that I'm awake, this is just one of the many rituals that I feed to myself, because before we can feed others, we got to feed ourselves, right?
It's true. Right.
I sit on the side of the bed and I just put my hands upon my heart chakra, and my eyes are closed, and I take a deep breath in, and then I internally or out loud, I will say, "Dear God, guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions." Guide my thoughts, God, and I just let it roll. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. My thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. I don't time it. I don't say it for a particular number of times. I just let it roll. Guide my thoughts, guide my words, guide my actions. And then I get up and I'm awake. And then throughout the day, if I'm ever feeling stressed out, angry, I'm a Taurus, and I can go to, when I witness, or if somebody is doing somebody wrong, I can get so angry. I can get so angry. And so where does the solution reside? The solution to resolve the anger and the panic and the anxiety, for me and a lot of other folks, resides in my heart space. And so another tool that I use is I silently say, out of my head into my heart. Out of my head. Into my heart. Out of my head into my heart. And I literally, because all of our chakra centers are connected. But when we're stressed out, we hold our breath. Right? We hold our breath. And so the logic, the sense, the clarity in our thought that is connected to a heart can't connect. It can't come up.
No.
And so out of my head into my heart is what I use throughout the day.
And because what that's doing, that a lot of people, because we're now just coming into the understanding as a culture and as a people that somatics is a part of who we are, and that the brain and the body are not separate, and that you can't train your intelligence and leave your body behind, right? Now that everyone is kind of coming into at least a communal understanding, maybe not a practice, but an understanding of that is true, we have to really start to think about how we realign our value system within our internal lives, right? So yes, out of my head and into my heart means I can think through this, but I can also allow myself to feel my way through this. And if they're balanced, then I'm actually going to get somewhere, right? Feelings are not facts, and facts are not finite, right? So as we move into this integration, we can find that kind of semblance of that internal voice that has been co-opted by either our parents a long time ago, who we now think that voice is ours, or the past hurts, or the media, or all these other people telling us what to think. When we come into an agreement with our mind and our heart, then we can actually find the intuitive power of our own voice. And that's, I think, the real battle, right, that we're facing, Charles, is how do we hold on to ourselves in the midst of other people's chaos?
Without it becoming chaos in us.
Yes.
Because that's what I witness happening. That's what I witness, I mean, but for me, lately I've been limiting my social media time. I have my people that I stay connected with, and I do my part to share content on social media that will hopefully inspire and lift people up, and let them know also, I care, I see you.
Yes.
Who you are and what you are experiencing is different than what I'm experiencing.
Right. And that's okay.
Yeah. And also, I mean, and Christal, another reason, I mean, I really, really appreciate you, reaching out to me to connect today, because, I mean, I'm a white man who happens, who is gay.
Yeah.
My husband and I have been together for 13 and a half years and married for over 9. I'm 20 years sober.
Yes.
And you and I have people look at me, people meet me, and well, privilege, privilege.
Yeah.
And people will dump all of their assumptions on me.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. And they would never know that 11 months ago today, I received a liver transplant. I was on the national transplant list for only 3 days.
Yeah.
The cancer I was diagnosed with 8 years ago, which wasn't causing any problems at all for 7.5 years, all of a sudden it was.
Yeah.
And I was able to go through this experience without any fear.
Yeah.
Close friends would say, "Oh, Charles, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I'm so sorry this is happening to you."
Yeah.
And dumping their sorrow on me. And I said, no, my dear, my friend, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me.
Right.
This is happening for me. And then in my prayers, I say, "Dear God, please reveal to me the qualities and the levels of Charles that I don't even know about yet, that can support me in experiencing and going through this experience."
Yeah.
I mean, I never had any frame of reference for how one goes through a liver transplant, because it happens so fast.
Yeah. Right. And even the speed in which you took the lesson, right? So, you and I can talk about this all day in terms of the power of your sacred yes, but the yes accelerates the understanding.
Right.
Whereas the no continues to block the permission for the actual thing to happen through you and for you.
And the intention the intention with which we say the yes.
Yes.
Is it a sacred yes, or is it a
begrudging yes?
It's a sarcastic yes.
Yeah.
That was me for a long time. I used to use sarcasm. Use sarcasm as a way of, I thought it was witty. I thought it was funny. And guess what? A lot of that sarcasm revealed itself as self-deprecation. I would end up putting myself down.
Yep.
I realized that I did it for decades.
Yeah, and your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between you joking or you speaking your life into reality.
That's right. I don't do that anymore, and because my yes is sacred.
Yeah.
My yes is sacred.
Yeah.
So should I share a little something?
That's okay. For all of you who have never read The Sacred Yes, this is by Dr. Deborah L. Johnson. Charles introduced me to this book probably 2-3 years ago.
Probably 3, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's going to read a little excerpt that we were just discussing beforehand.
So Reverend Deborah L. Johnson is an amazing person, and downloaded these lessons from the divine in 1995. And she was going through some major struggles back in the day. And I've been rereading it because, well, we're going through it these days. And so this one lesson, it's lesson number 6, goes like this. The title of it is, "Your judgment of circumstances leads to a lack of joy." I'm going to say that again. Your judgment of circumstances leads to a lack of joy. So now just remember that what I'm going to be reading to you is her download from God, from the divine, okay? So when you know that I am good all of the time, in spite of what you see, you will be less inclined to judge. Your lack of joy is not due to the circumstances and the conditions in your lives. Your lack of joy is due to your interpretation of those circumstances and conditions, which then lead you to believe that your good is not at hand, that things will not work out or will be delayed to your disadvantage, that things will not ultimately be all right. There is a victimization consciousness here. Understand what I am saying, my children. There is nothing for you to be victimized about. Even in those instances where you think some grave injustice has been done. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Yes. When we see ourselves as victims, it only colludes in the societal disempowerment that we can experience.
Yeah.
And so that's not the whole lesson, but our own internal judgment of the circumstances around us going on. It's like when I received word from the doctors at Memorial Sloan Kettering that I was going to need a transplant, I did not place myself in a place of victimhood.
Yeah.
I said, I just getting emotional because it was so sacred to me, and it was not that long ago.
Yeah.
So I took a deep breath and I said to the doctor on the video call, I said, well, I'm a gentleman who likes to make very well-informed decisions based upon all of the best information. What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And 3 days later, my husband and I were at Mount Sinai Hospital and had a 5-hour-long appointment with an amazing liver doctor and his nurse, who were the most extraordinarily loving and professional and compassionate team leading me and us through this journey. And so the quality and the power of our intention, I promise anyone out there who is watching this right now, if you are hurting, if you are struggling, if you are feeling downtrodden, if you are feeling unappreciated by the circumstances that are going on in your close proximity or in your community or in our country, please take a breath and just go within and realize that you are powerful. You are so powerful, not to do anything externally, like or at someone.
Right. But just to be.
But just to be, you are powerful. But it's really, really helpful. I mean, Christal, journaling. I mean, I journal so much, and the number of gratitude lists I've done over the years helps me to what I call it the purge and surge. Literally, I facilitate workshops called Purge and Surge.
Yeah.
Because we need to purge the hurt out of our minds and the heartbreak. My heart has been broken many a time in my life.
Right.
Purge the heartbreak, and we need to be able to do that in a vehicle where it can be received without judgment.
Yeah. In a safer space
these days.
No, you're exactly right, which is why I think people are having a hard time processing any type of discomfort or disappointment, because the spaces for disappointment and discomfort often feel as though they're toxic.
Yeah.
There are spaces where you can unveil your heart and talk about what you think are your failures, but are really the feedback that you're going in either the right or the wrong direction for you, right? Like there are spaces where you can unburden your heart, but we don't often find those. Sometimes I would just say, Charles, because I think people are looking for affinity groups rather than groups of transformation, right? So right? Like,
can you unpack that a little bit more?
Of course, like we can all say the things that we are labeled as. I'm labeled as a Black woman, a woman from the South, a parent who is single, sometimes by other people's words, a single mother, a teacher, a this, a that, right? A professional woman, right? All of these things. So sometimes I'm looking for that particular circle of people because I think they're going to understand what I'm going through or what I've been through or the way that I want to grow. But sometimes we're just reinforcing the narrative that we're trying to change.
Ooh. What's one example of that? How does that play itself out for you?
It plays itself out. Whereas, let's say I go to a meeting, right? And so people expect that I'm going to, this is a small version for other people. Yeah. People expect you're going to sit with the person that looks like you. Right? Like, think about it. Like, y'all, we often find growth in conversations and in relationships with people who are different than us, because what they actually do is open up space for us to see ourselves differently, or they help to refine what we actually believe or who we believe we are. People who disagree with you are not there to torment you. They're there to help you refine your own belief. Right. And so when we run up against these kind of, sandpaper people, sandpaper friends, Charles, right? Right. So a lot of times they're not meant to hurt us. They're just there to refine and buff off the rough edges so we can be fully varnished and the unvarnished people we are with each other, because that's how we know ourselves.
Which brings that authenticity and vulnerability. This another thing that goes along with what I feel like it kind of piggybacks on what you were just saying, is that, I mean, I live in New York City, in Brooklyn. I'm in Manhattan all the time, but I'm a New Yorker for over 30 years now. And I have witnessed, in this past week, in the last, 30 years, very often when something really difficult happens, people sometimes get really, really, really extremely emotional and carry a burden that actually is not theirs to carry. And sometimes what I understand, because I can say this because this was me and sometimes still can be. I can carry that someone else's burden because I care so much. I care so much. And I have gone through I have been able to come through and transcended and healed a lot of different physical, emotional, mental paradigms in my life. And so I have a very finely tuned vision. I'm able to hear and see things that most people miss. It's just the way it is. Which it's like sometimes there's that burden that sometimes people carry, don't realize that it's not theirs.
It's not theirs.
There's a way. It's almost like there's a codependency. I mean, it reminds me of another book that's on my shelf, Codependent No More by Melanie Beatty, where the friendships, the relationship patterns that we form in our lives, in our family, in our marriages, in our work relationships, can be really codependent because we're looking for validation.
Right.
And the validation, if we're looking for validation from the political system, for instance, and we're not getting it, does it actually really change who we are?
Right.
And if so, why?
Because that validation for many of us is tied up in meaning and morality. Right. And so we are taught, I mean, we can go back to this trope of, being the sustainer or the Black single mother, right? This idea that people have, right, is that one, I'm like working really hard Charles, I work, but like, I'm not gonna like kill myself to oblige someone else's paradigm, right? Like my joy is that I am raising a self-sufficient, emotionally intelligent Black man in America who does not inflict harm or receive harm without any rational reason. Bottom line, that's my parenting, right? At the end of the day, everything gets judged at that level. Right? It's not about, does someone else think he's doing well? Is it not about, do we have the things that we think we should have, right? It's not about getting all of the things. It's about raising and becoming the mother that I would love to be. And for some people that sounds selfish. And I'm like, oh, no. Because at the end of the day, if I sacrifice myself and he sees me do that under the guise of it's for him, then he will learn that love is sacrificing himself for other people who may not appreciate that level of love or capacity to give.
Right.
And so when we take on these other bigger battles on the outside of us, I think for some of us, it's because we're afraid to really fight the battle internally for our own mind, for our own freedom. Because No, freedom is not actually, or what we get is we get wrapped up in this idea that's really a dichotomy between fear and safety, right? And safety is not the absence of fear. Safety is the permission for freedom, right? And as we move into that understanding of like, oh, I am mentally, spiritually, emotionally safe in the vision of my life that I see myself walking, then that gives me permission to live in a freer, fuller way.
Safety is not the absence of fear.
No,
It is
the permission
the permission
for freedom.
for freedom. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but very often people get that twisted.
Yeah. Yeah.
People get that twisted. And right now, so hey, Christal, I mean, there are literally tens of millions of people
Millions. Yeah.
in our country right now that are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
That are, or whether they're what their struggle looks like is they're closed in on themselves. They're shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've spoken to people, I mean, in this last week that are shut all the way down.
Yeah.
And that's their form of protection.
Yeah. That's where they find their safety right now.
Yeah. Home, they're ordering all their food in, literally. Or there's other people that are out, abusing narcotics and alcohol heavily. Yes. They're like, I can't be, if I'm clear-headed through all of this, I'm going to be so angry.
Yeah.
That something bad is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you would like to offer to some of those people?
Yeah. I really admire your journey, Charles, as someone who's been sober for 20 years. And, I have a brother who battles addiction, and it's not a disease that I understand,
mm-hmm.
but I do understand being so caught up in a cycle of doing something that it takes over your identity, right? So I do understand that part. So, I caught a lot of flack, well, not a lot, actually, that's a negativity bias. There were some people over on my socials who disagreed with something that I said to the college age students that I teach, where I was like, guys, in the wake of this political decision, this is not the time to shrink back. This is really where you build the tapestry of the future you would love. And they were like, oh, you're endorsing burnout. And I'm like, no. And this is not political. This is geared towards a certain age of people who I know for a fact do not understand what some people mean by the word self-care. And what they do is they self-medicate. So I need them to come into their awake self right now and not fall into their victim mentality and go into a situation where they start to numb their disappointment with other things that are not going to develop their education.
Yeah.
Because their role right now as a student is not as the savior of the world. And if they can unburden themselves from what society has put on them, then they can actually find a freer, fuller version of themselves. So my advice really is to step into or give yourself permission to develop a series of rituals for yourself that are moving you forward without having to do something that someone else said makes you better, right? Like, I'm not a self-care kind of girl. I get it. I know what people do, but I also believe that self-care is often a reaction to something that's not happening in your day-to-day life. So I believe in soul care, like constant investments, daily investments in your well of joy, so that when things disturb you, you have something to pull from. You don't have to leave the situation or go do something different. You just realign yourself, right? So I think those daily rituals that we were talking about earlier are really, again, what I want to bring people back to as they commit to the fight for their mind and their heart and their own vision of themselves.
100%. Christal, you know something? You know what? Do you know that you're a masterpiece?
So are you. That's why. Listen.
I know.
And I'm going to say thank you. Yes, right, because we got to focus on acceptance.
So
yes,
when
and
you
thank
are
you.
living your life like a masterpiece.
Thank you.
We take a moment to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
We take, and when when I get so filled with gratitude. Okay, I think you know this about me. There's a connection between my heart and my tear ducts.
Yeah. Right.
And it just wants to just whoosh. My eyes just want to pour. It's because this journey we are all on is so sacred.
So sacred.
It is so sacred, Christal. You know that, but I'm saying this for anyone and everybody out there that doesn't realize how sacred they are. Maybe haven't had dear friends, coaches, counselors, their auntie, their great grandmama, anybody looking them in the eye and so deeply nurturing them to say, my love, you are a masterpiece. Little by little, not all at once, little by little, every day, do one thing different. In the course of your day. To demonstrate to yourself, to the rest of the universe out there, that it's like, maybe it's just the way you walk or the little smile on your face or whatever it is, or the book you're reading or or hydrating more with water or whatever it is. Do one thing a day to demonstrate to yourself that you are a masterpiece. And I can promise you that as an individual does that, and they continue to do it. See, the thing is, this is not a one and done.
Nope.
As they continue to do it, you know what it's like? And I realized this about 16, 17 years ago with all the journaling that I was doing and the self-reflections that I was doing throughout the day, and noticing that I was talking to myself internally in a way with more kindness.
Yes.
And self-love, instead of,
why are you not doing that?
Berating myself. And you're not doing enough. You're not doing it fast enough. Oh my God, that was my mind for so long. But when you do that for a period of time, like the present moment of you, the individual, whoever it is that's watching this, be able to reflect back on the version of you from a year ago.
Yes.
And you will realize, wow, I have been making deposits into my spiritual bank account.
Exactly.
Every single loving demonstration that I give to myself, you are making deposits.
Yes.
Into your spiritual bank account. I will call it, I'm building spiritual muscles. I'm putting in the reps. I'm putting in the reps. I'm putting in the reps. And then when something challenging happens, you've been putting in the reps. You are more capable, and you're
stronger.
You're stronger, and you have more wisdom. You're not just reacting.
Right.
Oh, and this is another big thing. You know the distinction between reacting and responding.
Yes. Right. Because reacting already puts you in a place of scarcity and victimhood. You got to do something immediately. And when we're thinking about this spiritual deposits, what we're doing is thriving in a practice of abundance. So response gives you space to pause and then decide how you want to be in the next moment.
So let's break this down a little bit more for our friends.
Okay.
So there's reacting.
Yes.
That's what does that look like? What does that sound like to most people?
Judgment.
Oh,
yeah. Sounds like to most people, like, why did you do that? I can't do that.
A knee-jerk
reaction, right?
Self-protection, right? Like a self-protection or a judgment. Yeah.
Defending.
Victimhood. So then responding, if there's reacting on one hand, and then there's which makes you, and then you end up holding your breath.
Yeah.
You clench, something internally gets clenched.
Yeah.
Clench your hips, you clench your jaw, you clench your mind, whatever, you stop breathing.
Yeah.
And then there's responding, where there's breath.
Yeah.
There's flow.
There's openness to receive.
There's openness to receive, and there's a higher level of awareness. And from a higher level of awareness, when we're responding, we have the ability to make wiser decisions and speak with poise.
Yes. Yep. Poise, clarity. And it goes back into what you were saying before, Charles, about deposits into your spiritual bank. Every time you deposit into your spiritual bank, what you're actually doing is keeping an agreement that you've made with yourself about who you want to be. And that's how we build more confidence. So the more confidence we build in that person we're becoming, the less we have to respond or react or depend on that old narrative of who we've been.
But how do you, but for the people that are watching us right now,
Yes.
so I love what you just said. And one of the things that you were talking about, putting deposits into the spiritual bank account so that you can make deposits to become the person that you want to be.
Yeah.
What if you don't know who you want to be?
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest
thing.
That's the biggest question. Like people are fighting for an identity that's individual.
They want immediate results.
Yeah.
That's the thing, especially with Instagram, Instantgram, or, how many followers you have, how much, and all of a sudden, all of these things are the things that matter instead of how much, instead of the quantity, it's the quality.
Correct. Yeah. And the quality, and this, okay, Lord, we could be on here all day. We love it. But the distinction between even that in terms of how people are externalizing their success or developing their vision, one, I can have integrity, which means I'm going to keep my word with other people, or these spiritual deposits can build my confidence, which means I'm keeping my agreements with myself. And which one, I have to determine which one is more valuable.
And which one are you then depositing into your bank?
Exactly. Right. Because a lot of times we're like, we got to have boundaries. Like the boundaries are about telling other people. Most of the time when people are using the word boundary, they're trying to tell someone else no, but they're actually not changing the no to someone else with a yes to themselves. They're just saying no and stopping. Right. What does that no to another person or another obligation or another version of you give you freedom to be? Or who does it give you freedom to be? Where's the sacred yes in all of that?
For me, I know that the sacred yes is, I know that I have, for all the things that I've been through in my life, I have not come this far to come just this far.
Correct. Right.
And there comes to the assignment, the divine assignment, where the question perhaps might be, so how prudent of a student will you be? Being a prudent student of life. Will you be kind? Will you, and a big thing, will you extend empathy to yourself? We can't see, this is the thing. It is not possible to extend empathy to others if we don't extend empathy and compassion to ourselves.
Yes.
And I believe that most people don't know how to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, from my own limited life experience.
Yes. So and from the work we get to do.
Yeah. Don't know how to extend empathy and compassion to themselves. I mean, and I can say that because that was me.
Yeah.
The way that I inherited, not from my parents, from society in general. I had very, very loving parents, but from society in general, that to like yourself was kind of braggadocious, kind of, to say like, yeah, I like myself.
Right.
It's conceited. You say you love yourself. Now that's just
yeah,
not allowed.
Right.
Not allowed.
Right.
Well, guess what, Christal? I love myself.
Yes. And you have to be able to love yourself in order to love another person. And it sounds cliche, but the work of actually excavating and loving all of your parts, the light, the dark, and not being afraid to sometimes go back into your dark, so because it's going to give you the next spark of where you're going, right? Like that part is, I think, the crux of what you and I do with our clients to give them more hope in who they are becoming.
Well, being well acquainted with and becoming almost very familiar and almost friendly with the darkness of the past.
Yeah.
The darkness that one has experienced.
Yeah. And
helps to release its power over you.
Yes. And I just will say,
I can revisit. I can go. I mean, I can review. I don't revisit it ever. but there's a distinction where it's like you're reviewing it as if it's on the computer screen of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I go back because I've done an enormous amount of inner child healing work over the years.
Yeah.
To resolve and transcend a lot of the trauma that Charlie absorbed. I was Charlie up until I was 17, and then I changed to Charles. Charlie absorbed so much trauma, and then Charles did too.
Yeah.
Being able to review that.
Yeah, like game footage.
And yes. And to be able to then, it's almost as if all the younger versions of Charlie and Charles are here.
Yeah.
Like, how would I love to be able to cheer them on? Instead of having the inner critic.
Yeah.
We are our own inner cheerleader.
No, it's very true, Charles.
In the midst of what our country is going through right now, I want to invite everybody out there to easy does it, but do it, and become your own inner cheerleader.
Yeah.
Your own inner coach, your own, not the inner saboteur or the inner critic.
Right.
And it literally just takes one thing at a time to be able to turn the volume way up on the self-care, the self, and turn the volume down on feeling paralyzed and victimized.
Yeah. Charles, it's been a pleasure. I mean, y'all, we could do this all day. Feel free to post your questions anywhere on any platform that you're watching this, and we'll try to get back to them. The bottom line here is that you are powerful, you are loved, you are capable of loving yourself and others, and that's what's going to transform their inner world and our outer world into a place where we all feel like masterpieces. Charles West, thank you so much for joining us. I can't tell you how much fun I had, but we'll do it again sometime. And,
anytime, dear. I mean,
I love it so much.
You are, from one masterpiece to another. Let's carry on. Let us continue holding the high watch.
Yes.
Holding the high watch for ourselves and for others. And I appreciate you immensely.
Yes, I appreciate you too. We're going to sign off, but for those ladies out there who just haven't quite made up their minds to be at 3V, we want you to go ahead and grab your tickets to the 3V Women's Conference. I'm going to post that information right after this, but be well, have an amazing day, and continue to live your life on purpose.